Could the career of Eli Gold as the Alabama football voice be over? We're going to talk about those rumors and possibilities here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Roll Tide, everybody. Let's get this party started. What are you saying? Welcome to the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. It's easy to do. And follow on the socials at Broadcaster Mick. You know what? It's always sad when you see the end of a legendary career. And when you're in broadcasting, sometimes you can hear the end of the career before the person's not on the air anymore. And I'm thinking about the end of time for John Forney, who was the longtime Alabama play-by-play guy. Left, came back, and it just wasn't there anymore. It was tough. And people said, hey, I remember when John Forney was at his best and how good he was. And I think that parallels to where we are right now with the longtime Alabama football broadcaster, Eli Gold. And Eli's been Alabama's voice since 1988. Him and Snake Stabler, I feel like, are arguably the best combo that the SEC has ever had. I mean, it's not even fair to anyone that ever takes that job as a color voice of radio to ever think that they could be the best that ever did it, because that's already happened. And that's not a shot at anybody. Snake Stabler is the best color football guy I've ever heard. And when you paired him up with Eli Gold, it really was radio magic. And for years, that combination was on the air. And people remember Snake, obviously not from my generation, but from my parents' generation, what he was able to do on the football field at Alabama, under Bear Bryant, then in the NFL, under John Madden, like the historic career. And you guys know I love the floor Bama. So did Snake. Actually, Snake, awesome. And him and Eli Gold were great for so many years. Eli Gold had a miraculous comeback from cancer. He woke up and couldn't walk. And eventually they figured out that he had cancer, and he's beaten cancer. You guys saw the video with him ringing the bell. And a lot of prayers answered, because he very easily could have died from what he has said in reports. But he came back, and he came all the way back to get on the radio this year for the home games and the Iron Bowl, while Chris Stewart did the road games for the Crimson Tide Sports Network. He's not getting fired. His contract's up. And from what my sources tell me, and I've talked to quite a few, he is just not having his contract renewed. And I mean, let's be honest here. As much as we loved hearing his voice, and it's still so comforting when he says touchdown Alabama. I mean, it is. I mean, we've listened to it for a long time. The play-by-play itself was really tough to discern. You didn't know what the score was, and in the business of play-by-play in football, it's down, distance, and score, right? And and also the quarter. And I listened some this year, and even before he was sick, and you couldn't really follow a lot of the plays, right? And I just thought, well, do you want to have people that listen for the first time and hear this think that that's what Eli Gold was all about? Because I mean, for years he didn't miss any of that stuff, but this year, for sure. And this isn't a shot. I mean, it's just at 70 years old, it's just tough to keep up with the pace of the game. And also the press, and I'm going to make an excuse, the press boxes have changed as well. And it's tougher to see the field. But listening to the games, I mean, there were times when I really just had no idea what was going on. And I didn't listen to every play of every game, but enough to know that it might be time to move on and do some other stuff. And to me, I was thinking, hey, what if he just slid over and did the third guy in the booth job? Maybe just told stories and all that. Then you could have the color guy go down on the field and interview Saban, which is Tyler Watts, who did a great job. But that's not in my pay grade. That's just a suggestion here. Eli Gold, complicated career. one of the all-time greats in college football and one of the all-time greats in NASCAR as well. And before I even came to Alabama, I came from a NASCAR family. My grandfather loved NASCAR. And from 1976 on, Eli Gold was part of NASCAR Radio, MRN. One of these guys who hosted shows and then was also in the turns. And the way that they do the NASCAR races on radio, you talk about a really fun, great broadcast. That's NASCAR and MRN. One broadcaster's in, turn 1 and 2, and then there's 1 and 3 and 4, and then one by the finish line, the start-finish line, and they work in tandem. Like one person calls it, then the next person takes it, and the next person takes it. And Eli Gold was great at that as well, and did that for 40 years. But you really can't mention that in his career without talking about his exit from MRN, which in Alabama was swept under the rug. But he was a fixture on the MRN broadcast for 40 years, from 1976 to 2016. And then according to the site Deadspin, the network took Gold's microphone away and suspended him due to an incident that allegedly took place in April of that year while the Sprint Cup Series was in Richmond, Virginia, for a race called the Toyota Owners 400. So he worked the next race, which was in Talladega. And then after that, he wasn't in the booth for the Kansas race. And then after that, he was gone. They erased his biography off of the MRN site almost immediately. No fanfare at all. No acknowledgement of his decades of service. Just a very cold statement that he had moved on, and that was that. And then he came back to Alabama, and the issue didn't affect his employment status at the University of Alabama at all. Soon after resigning from NASCAR under the leadership of Bill Battle, who was the athletic director, Gold was added to many of the university's SEC Network Plus events. So these are produced by Crimson Tide Productions, which is an in-house group, and then sent to ESPN to air. So NASCAR basically fired him after 40 years for what was allegedly inappropriate behavior, and then he came back to Alabama. And then you saw him on, sports like men's basketball, not the games that were on the TV, the games that were on the internet, baseball and some other sports. So, that's part of the story as well. And then, what's happening now? I mean, I'm sure there will be a lot more fanfare if this is what eventually does happen. I mean, because there's so many twists and turns when you talk about, contracts and negotiations, and maybe, the people at Crimson Tide Sports Network don't think he's coming back, but then, somebody else that's in upper management decides that he is coming back. Maybe he's friends with some boosters. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's been around for a long time. So nothing's set in stone, but from what I understand, it's a long shot that contract's going to be renewed. So, kind of a sad day, if you will, to see the end of, a legendary voice and broadcaster. But I think even more sad that we just get old. I think it's going to affect all of us. You're not going to out wrestle Father Time, right? And the other part of it is, to be honest with you, when you listen to like the Rose Bowl, and I did listen to the Rose Bowl. Technically, it's just way better. I mean, what's going on. The down and distance, the score's right. The speed of the game is there. I think that Chris Stewart and Tyler Watts, who used to do TV together, are fantastic on the radio. So we'll see what happens. That's just kind of my take on it. I know that a lot of you guys love Eli. And when you put Eli's calls up to the TV and you're not in real time, they still sound pretty good. I mean, his voice isn't quite as strong as it used to be, but it's not like he's out there and, and he sounds like where you can't understand what he's saying. It's just that the pace of the game when you're on radio and you can't see it, in my opinion, you're clueless to what's going on. And I think that that's a good sign to say, hey, maybe it's time to look at something else. And there's other opportunities out there where it wouldn't necessarily be just calling the play-by-play. Or maybe you say, hey, we don't even care if you guys know what's going on. That's Eli, and he's out there. and all you need to know is touchdown Alabama and the way that he does it. So thanks for hanging out. Give me your opinion in the comments section. I don't know if this is going to be something that a lot of you guys care about. Maybe you don't listen to radio anymore. I know that the majority of people watch the games now. And that kind of goes with why Eli Gold was so famous, is because there was a time when the only place we could get the games, some of them was on radio. I mean, like, you had to listen on radio before the SEC Network Plus. And, you may have a Jefferson Pilot game, or CSS or something, but not all the games were there. And if you weren't at the game, or maybe you're there, you listen to them on your headphones. But technology has certainly changed the way that we take our information in. I mean, I'd say that, like even the way that we, get ready for the games. I feel like more people watch and listen to the pregame show than they do the game, because, normally you're watching the game on television and, you're just you want that specific coverage of the action on radio at your tailgate party, while you're driving around picking up your supplies, while you're getting ready in your house. And, and then when the game starts, boom, you put it on television. I think that's why so many people on here don't like Gary Danielson. They didn't mind Vern, but they didn't like Gary. And some of you guys are going to tell me Gary did a good job. And I know that's so funny, because I'll get, for one of you guys, I'll get like 99 people that can't stand them. But I think that's why, because you're there watching him. And I wonder if, like, just a side note, was it the same way for Howard Cosell? Was Gary Danielson our version, this generation's of Howard Cosell? Because I liked Howard Cosell, but I was young, really young back when he was the play-by-play guy. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. We're going to update what's going on with the transfer portal. We'll keep on dropping information on that. There's Alabama's losing some players right now. They're doing a lot of the self-evaluation and giving guys a chance to leave. Some guys that might jump in the transfer portal might get pulled back in. So we'll find all of that out. But thanks for hanging out with us. Don't forget that we're on Facebook now, Bama Tailgate Show on Facebook. Roll Tide, everybody, and we'll talk to you real soon.